Imagine it's the dead of night. March 1942. A small flotilla of British ships is sailing straight into the most heavily defended port in Nazi-occupied France. Their mission? To destroy the largest dry dock in the world. This isn't a Hollywood movie. This is the incredible true story of the Saint-Nazaire Raid, one of the most audacious and seemingly impossible operations of World War II. By early 1942, the war at sea was brutal. German U-boats were strangling Britain's supply lines. And there, powerful surface raiders, battleships like the Bismarck and its sister ship, the Tirpitz, posed a constant, terrifying threat. While the Bismarck had been sunk, the Tirpitz, the lonely queen of the North, was still out there, a phantom haunting the Atlantic convoys. The British Admiralty knew that if the Tirpitz ever broke out into the Atlantic, it would be a catastrophe. But there was a weakness. A ship that large needs a massive dry dock for repairs and maintenance. On the entire Atlantic coast, only one such dock existed, the Normandie dock at Saint-Nazaire, France. The logic was simple, yet terrifyingly bold. If they could destroy the dock, the Tirpitz would be trapped. It would never risk venturing into the Atlantic without a safe harbor to return to for repairs. The Saint-Nazaire Raid, codenamed Operation Chariot, was born. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They would ram an old destroyer, packed to the brim with explosives, directly into the dock gates. At the same time, Commandos would swarm ashore from smaller motor launches to destroy other key targets like pumping stations. Lock gates and gun emplacements, the plan relied on deception and surprise. They would fly a German flag and use German signal codes to try and bluff their way up the Loire estuary. The centerpiece of this insane plan was HMS Campbeltown, a former American destroyer from World War I. It was old, but perfect for the job. Its silhouette was extensively modified to resemble a German MG-class torpedo boat. Its bow was stripped down and packed with 4.5 tons of delayed action explosives set inside concrete to make them unstoppable. The fuses were set to detonate hours after the impact, long after the Germans thought the danger had passed. Accompanying the Campbeltown was a small flotilla of 18 smaller, wooden-hulled vessels, motor gunboats and motor launches. These boats, often called the little ships, would carry the Commandos. They were fast but incredibly vulnerable, armed with little more than machine guns. On board were some 600 men, Royal Navy sailors and British commandos, all volunteers who knew the odds were stacked heavily against them. They were trained to perfection, but nothing could truly prepare them for what they were about to face. On March 26, 1942, the flotilla set sail from Falmouth, England. The journey across the English Channel was tense. They even encountered a German U-boat, which they managed to sink, but not before it radioed their position. The element of surprise was already compromised, yet they pressed on. As they entered the 7-mile-long Loire estuary on the night of March 27th, the real danger began. Saint-Nazaire was bristling with German defenses, an estimated 5,000 troops, anti-aircraft guns, coastal artillery, and searchlights lining both banks of the river. As they approached the harbor, the deception began to work. The German lookouts were confused by the strange ships flying their flag. Using a captured German signal lamp, the British signalers flashed back codes, buying precious minutes, but the bluff couldn't last. The Germans grew suspicious. Searchlights suddenly snapped on, bathing the little ships in blinding white light. Then all hell broke loose. Traces of every color crisscrossed the night sky as every German gun opened fire. The wooden motor launchers were torn apart. Many caught fire, turning into floating infernos. Commandos and sailors were cut down by the hailstorm of shells and bullets. Despite the horrific losses, the men on HMS Campbeltown held their course under the command of Lieutenant Commander Stephen Beatty. They steamed directly towards the massive caisson. The gate of the Normandie dock. Shells rained down on them, but the old destroyer wouldn't be stopped. At 1:34 a.m. on March 28th, with a deafening screech of tearing metal, HMS Campbeltown slammed into the dock gate, embedding its bow deep within the structure. The first part of the mission was a success. But the Commandos' work had just begun. Under a relentless barrage of fire, they scrambled down scaling ladders onto the docks. Their objectives were clear: destroy the pumping machinery, the winding houses for the lock gates, and create as much chaos as possible. Led by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Newman, the Commandos split into demolition teams and protection parties. They fought with ferocious intensity, moving through the shipyard, placing their explosive charges. They were heavily outnumbered and taking severe casualties, but they were determined to complete their mission. The fighting was brutal at close quarters, amidst the cranes and railway lines of the dockyard. Many of the motor launchers designated to evacuate them were destroyed or forced to withdraw, leaving the Commandos stranded. Colonel Newman realized evacuation by sea was impossible. He gathered the remaining Commandos, around 100 men, and made a new plan: fight their way through the town of Saint-Nazaire and try to escape into the French countryside. Hoping to link up with the French resistance, it was a desperate gamble. They fought street by street, house by house, but they were surrounded, exhausted, and running out of ammunition. One by one, the small groups were overwhelmed and forced to surrender. Of the 600 men who set out on the raid, only a handful would make it back to England. Back at the dock, the Germans swarmed over the seemingly harmless beach destroyer HMS Campbeltown. They were confident they had crushed the British attack. But the real sting in the tail was yet to come. The 4.5 tons of explosives in its bow were ticking away silently. At around 10:30 a.m., while German officers and inspection teams were still on board, the Campbeltown erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. The blast was immense, completely destroying the dock gate and killing an estimated 360 German soldiers and civilians. The Normandie dock was obliterated, but the chaos wasn't over. The Commandos had also used torpedoes with delayed action fuses. Later that day, and even the next, these torpedoes began to detonate at the other lock gates, causing further destruction and widespread panic among the German garrison, who thought they were under a new airborne attack. The raid had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The cost was incredibly high. 169 British servicemen were killed, and over 200 were taken prisoner. But their sacrifice was not in vain. The Normandie dock was rendered useless for the rest of the war. The battleship Tirpitz was now a prisoner in the Norwegian fjords, its threat to the Atlantic convoys neutralized without a single shot being fired at it directly. The Saint-Nazaire Raid was a stunning strategic victory. The sheer bravery of the men involved was recognized with an unprecedented number of awards. 5 Victoria Crosses, the highest award for gallantry, were awarded, along with over 80 other decorations. The raid became legendary, a testament to courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to attempt the impossible. It was, as one British officer called it, the greatest raid of all. It proved that even in the darkest hours of the war, a small group of determined individuals could change its course. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from history.